We're going to begin the hour with the very latest from the war between Israel and Hamas, now into its sixth week. And there are today fresh appeals for international action for Gaza's largest hospital. Dr. Omar Abdel Manan is the founder of Gaza Medic Voices, and he spoke to us just minutes ago.
What I have heard is a hospital that is frankly a ghost town or a ghost hospital. This is a shell of a hospital. The majority of patients have been evacuated or have fled and starved, or the ones that are too sick to flee have been left to die.
This is the most recent video we have of Al-Shifa Hospital. It's from Friday, and you can see the tents that also act as cover for the hundreds of people who are sheltering there. Ellen Morrow is part of our CBC News team. She's in Ashdod to bring you the latest.
There are many really dire images coming out of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Heather, another one that we received a short time ago is coming from the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas, and it's of the babies, the 36 babies who remain inside Al-Shifa. Now, those babies are lying side by side on a hospital bed. They should be in incubators, but the hospital doesn't have the electricity to power those incubators. So they're lying together on a hospital bed, and now there is aluminum foil put up around the edges of the bed. That's a last resort measure to try to keep those newborn babies warm. That shows you just how dire it all is, Heather. CBC News reached the director of Al-Shifa Hospital again this morning. He says that another baby has died at the hospital. That's 4 babies because the hospital doesn't have the electricity, the fuel needed to actually provide proper care. We've also seen images of doctors, under flashlights stitching injured patients' heads. So it is incredibly dire. Doctors there say that Israeli tanks are now surrounding the hospital. There's been fierce fighting around Al-Shifa for days now. Israel says that there is a Hamas command center in a web of tunnels below Al-Shifa. Hamas and doctors there have denied that, and doctors are sounding the alarm again this morning about the situation there. Here's what one doctor said, who isn't at Al-Shifa but is speaking out about what's happening there.
Shifa Hospital and Indonesian Hospital are the only hospital can operate in the north, and people cannot reach them. So situation there is very critical and dangerous. Our medical teams in Shifa Hospital now are facing death because they just committed to their patients till the last moments.
Now, the World Health Organization also is speaking about the situation at Al-Shifa, Heather, saying it's no longer functioning as a hospital. Now, Israel yesterday said that it opened up an evacuation corridor to try to get civilians out of the hospital. It's believed there's still thousands of people inside, either patients or the displaced sheltering there, but it's unclear how many were actually able to leave through that route. Israel has also said that it would help evacuate the remaining babies as fears grow from the hospital that more of them could die. That doesn't appear to have happened yet, and there doesn't seem to be any details for how that will actually happen. So fears for those children are growing. There is a question of fuel. Yesterday, Israel was on the defensive, saying that it did drop off 300 liters of fuel in jerry cans near the hospital. The director of the hospital told us today that the hospital did receive that fuel, that officials from the International Committee of the Red Cross went out, they grabbed it, they brought it to the hospital, but that it was only helpful for a very short period of time. Again, 300 liters. The director of the hospital says that Al-Shifa needs 10,000 liters of fuel to be able to run for a 24-hour period. And we're continuing to hear condemnation for the fighting, for these strikes around the hospital from various aid agencies, Heather.
So, Ellen, this is now the start of the 6th week of Israel's war with Hamas, and clearly Israeli forces have now reached the gates, essentially, of this largest hospital in Gaza. What is the latest overall we're hearing about Israel's ground offensive?
Well, we do get updates throughout the day from the Israel Defense Forces on the ground offensive. This push into the north continues. An update this morning said that forces had raided the Al-Shifa refugee camp, which is in the north of Gaza. And Israel says that Hamas is hiding weapons amongst civilian buildings. So in the update this morning, it said that it found explosives in a mosque, that there were weapons hidden in a children's bedroom. That's what we're hearing from the IDF. We were in the south, further into the south yesterday. We saw big airstrikes going into the north of Gaza, buildings collapsing, the operation continuing to intensify. Now, with the situation at Al-Shifa, those calls grow for there to be a ceasefire in the fighting. Israel continues to reject those calls, saying that it must wipe out the threat posed by Hamas. Now, as you said, I'm in Ashdod in the south of Israel. This is a place where Hamas does fire rockets to. Israel says that since the beginning of the war, 9,500 rockets have been fired into Israel. Now, the vast majority of those are intercepted by the Iron Dome. But Israel says with that and with the October 7th attacks that there can be no ceasefire until Hamas is wiped out and until the hostages are returned. But when you see those dire pictures from inside Al-Shifa, Heather, these calls for a ceasefire, for a meaningful stop in the fighting, are only going to get louder.
Ellen Morrow from Ashdod in Israel this morning.